check out ESPN Film's newly released 30 for 30 podcasts. From the producers of our award-winning documentary series, this is an amazing collection of sports stories you need to hear to believe. Speaking of amazing, Delta Airlines and the Fly Delta app make your travel experience amazingly easy with real-time bag tracking, e-boarding, and passport scanning during check-in. And don't forget to download 30 for 30 podcasts to fill your flight with stories that will keep you coming back for more.
This is the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
I'm Stephen A. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show, coming at you as I love to do every weekday over the airways of ESPN Radio. That's 710 ESPN LA. That's 98.7 FM New York City. And, of course, nationwide over the airways of ESPN Radio. Sirius XM, Channel 80. Number to call up, as always, is 866-729-ESPN. That's 866-729-3776. Jam-packed show coming your way today. Seth the Valve of the Cleveland Browns, tight end, who happens to be white, taking a knee with an abundance of other black players. That's something to talk about today. Obviously, we'll get a little into Conor McGregor and Floyd Money Mayweather. The fight is this weekend, this Saturday, just 4 nights away in Vegas. I'll be there, Lord willing. Can't miss that. Some stuff to talk to in regards to that, Kyrie Irving and LeBron James. I'll talk to you about that a little bit later as the show progresses. And, of course, I'll revisit Irvin Magic Johnson. And as far as I'm concerned, this bogus tampering charge that has been leveled against him by the Indiana Pacers, which the NBA is forced to investigate. 866-729-ESPN is the number to call up. That's 866-729-3776. First on my mind, however, first and foremost on my mind, is this situation involving Odell Beckham Jr. and how Odell Beckham Jr. for the New York Giants ultimately escaped serious injury. Preseason game, they're playing last night against the Cleveland Browns, and Odell Beckham Jr. catches a pass. That's high. And when he catches the pass, that's high. What happens is that he turns around. Well, actually, he didn't turn around. Catching a pass before he comes down. Defender goes low. Takes his legs out from under him. The injury looked to be bad initially, but ultimately, even though he left the game and came back to the sidelines, he couldn't continue playing. Some would say he escaped serious injury, which he obviously did, and we can't deny that. But, see, here's the thing for me, and here's the thing that I peel from it. This is just how I feel about it. I don't understand for the life of me why there are preseason games for starters in the National Football League. I understand that you got to practice, you got to warm up, you got to get yourself ready, but football is such a vicious and violent sport. The thought of somebody getting hurt in a meaningless preseason game vexes me. It's just the truth. I look at it from the standpoint like, look, man, there shouldn't be preseason games. I think that if you're going to have preseason games, the only people who should be playing are the reserves. It should not be. Absolutely, positively should not be a situation where starters are playing in preseason games. When one play can end your season, potentially your career. In a league where there's a hard cap and guaranteed contracts aren't really guarantees. Salaries are there to be minimized, waived, or flat out cut. I don't believe in my heart there should be preseason games. I think the preseason should be completely eradicated. And if you have to keep it in tow, you should make sure you're not going to see players. I don't think Tom Brady should play in preseason games. I don't think Aaron Rodgers should play in preseason games. I don't think Drew Brees or Big Ben Roethlisberger should play in preseason games. I think everybody should be doing what Cam is doing right now. Cam Newton, watching, running down the sidelines, cheering on Christian McCaffrey when he does his thing as a rookie. I don't believe that guy should be playing in the preseason. The sport is just entirely too violent. And because of its violence and what you're subjecting to as a result of it, I just think it's a very, very dangerous situation for people to be in. Odell Beckham Jr. is lucky his season isn't over. He's lucky. Giants lost 10-6 to the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland Browns winning the preseason game. We all know it's meaningless. Okay? But my thing is, he's very, very lucky. Everybody exhaled when it was learned that Odell Beckham Jr. would survive and would not be out for the season. It was a very scary moment. And you got guys like Damon Harrison and Landon Collins ticked off beyond measure at the Cleveland Browns. You talking about Brian Bodie Calhoun? This is the kind of stuff that they're worried about. They're saying, what you doing? Like Harrison said in a string of his tweets, you don't boo somebody when they get hurt. Not cool, Cleveland fans, not cool at all. I know you guys were excited about winning, but damn. I know y'all came to see him, so come down to New Jersey if it's that serious. You just don't boo an injured player. Congrats on the win. But Landon Collins was even more livid at Bodie Calhoun's low hit and had no problem explaining why. Listen to what he said, quote, I cannot have a teammate next to me playing that way. I cannot condone it. It's not something I seek. He had all the opportunity in the world to make a different play. The play wasn't a penalty, but it's something everybody knows you don't do. He had about 30 seconds to make a play on the ball in the air. He could have made a play on the ball, could have hit him high, but he chose a different route. I cannot respect it. Now, the NFL was quick to say that Bodie Calhoun's hit was legal, despite how dangerous it looked. But that's because the NFL cares about avoiding concussions. And if guys get their knees and their legs and their ankles shattered, that ain't the NFL's problem. Next man up. But I don't understand how anybody can feel that way about it. I'm going to repeat, I don't believe there should be preseason games, especially for the starters at the very least. 866-729-ESPN is the number to call up. That's 866-729-3776. I told you about the player for the Cleveland Browns, DeVal, that kneeled for the national anthem. I mentioned him at the start of the show. He's white. Happens to be married to a black woman. His name is Seth DeValve. Browns tight end. Becomes first white NFL player to kneel during the national anthem. He said that eventually, in the very near future, he's going to have children that don't necessarily look like him. He's black. He's white. His wife is black. And so he took the position that he took. Kudos to him. Being a conscientious observer. Can do nothing but have appreciation for that. Here's the flip side. A guy like Charles Barkley had something else to say. He talked about folks complaining and going off and what have we resolved? What has been accomplished? And you got people in an uproar at Sir Charles because how dare him say such a thing? I have absolutely, positively no problem with what Charles Barkley said. I'll explain why in a minute. You're listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio.
You're listening to the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
It's past hour number one back here on the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio. Coach Herm Edwards will be on the line with us a little bit later on in the show, talk about some of the NFL action. It's been percolating in the news wires and beyond over the last 24 hours or so. Looking forward to having that conversation with him. Number to call up is 866-729-ESPN. That's 866-729-3776. Charles Barkley was on Mike and Mike this morning and was asked about the protest and was asked about the kneeling during the national anthem and obviously its association with Colin Kaepernick, et cetera, et cetera. And before we comment, I want you to hear his response. Listen to it. Go ahead, Nuno.
The media which I'm part of, I think they've hijacked the story, and we spend all our time talking about who's standing, who's not standing, who's a good guy, who's a bad guy. You're dictated whether you're a good guy or a bad guy if you're not standing for the anthem. And we haven't solved one single issue. We don't even talk about the issues anymore. And that's the thing that probably disappoints me the most. I mean, when's the last time we ever talked about why these guys are actually kneeling or holding up their fists? We spend all our time like, who's doing it this? Okay, are all the black guys doing it, and most of them are not? Oh, we need a white guy. Okay, now we got some white guys. And we spend all our time wasting energy and effort, and we haven't solved one single. We don't even talk about the issues anymore.
He kind of has a point, if we're being totally honest. Now, look, here's some of the things that we really, really have to understand. First of all, Charles Barkley is no authority on these issues. He's no expert. He certainly is not the most articulate individual in the world in terms of explaining in depth exactly what's going on. Neither am I. Neither are a lot of people. But what he does, what I would like to believe I do, and what others do, is have the courage to broach issues. So those who are more deeply informed, who are most educated, who can add additional levels of substance to the discussion, take that bull by the horn and bring it home. And it takes courage to instigate that process. And that is what Charles Barkley does. And far too many occasions, people will be quick to attack him instead of simply addressing what he said and taking it to another level like it was meant for you to do. Charles Barkley is he's a Hall of Famer, a former NBA player, one of the top 50 players in the history of the National Basketball Association. That's who Charles Barkley is. He's all of those things and then some, who just happens to be opinionated about various issues. And on far too many occasions, whether it's him, it's me, or somebody else that happen to be African Americans, it's too many people willing to attack the individual instead of simply addressing what they said and elaborating extensively on the subject at hand, as you may be more equipped to do than Charles Barkley, myself, or various others. Charles Barkley's right. When's the last time we really, really, really touched on Colin Kaepernick and what his agenda was? Addressing racial inequality and prejudice and bigotry and police brutality. When's the last time we really talked about that, instead of talking about he's out of a job, instead of talking about players are kneeling and more of them are going to kneel, instead of talking about, oh, white players are kneeling too. We talk about all of these things, but we haven't been talking about why Colin Kaepernick felt the real need to do what he did. And that's why Charles Barkley's not wrong. And in the process, what he's done, and has made a lot of people uncomfortable, particularly in the black community. It's made a lot of people uncomfortable. Because he revealed somewhat of a little dirty secret. And that is as legitimate and fearful and valid as our complaints are. Far too many of us appear more interested in complaining than actually doing something about it. And see, I can get to say that. You know why? Because I don't know whether Charles Barkley does it or not, but it's not just about reading and educating yourself and edifying yourself on particular issues. I also listen. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't get a chance to do it every morning because I'm a very, very busy man. But any chance I get, if I'm in the car, between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m., it's going to be on the Joe Madison Show. 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Urban View Channel 126 on Sirius XM. Because the man is an historian who religiously asks his listeners time and time and time again, we hear you complaining. What are you going to do about it? He asks the question every day. Every day. Because he's somebody, as a former president, I believe, of the Detroit chapter of the NAACP, who has a lengthy history of striving to do something about the things that ails him and the community of which we speak. Karen Hunter, same channel, Urban View 126, every weekday from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Every day, she talks about what you're going to do about it. How we've got to arm ourselves, not just with knowledge, but actionable measures to address the concerns that ail us. Charles Barkley is essentially saying the same thing, just not as fluidly or as fluid and cogent and clear as Joe Madison or Karen Hunter. These things are important because, ladies and gentlemen, as we sit here today and we're having a conversation about protests and stuff like that, do you know what you want to know what hasn't happened? Colin Kaepernick hasn't been hired. Peaceful demonstration, peaceful protest, didn't inhibit anybody's ability to watch the game or come to the game or anything like that. Colin Kaepernick's without a job. Doesn't have a job. Not one of the 32 starting jobs, not one of the 32 backup jobs. Of those 64 jobs alone, he's qualified over at least 40 of them. Doesn't have a job. So we see Seth the Valve, and we appreciate him being a conscientious observer. We see Malcolm Jenkins, Michael Bennett, Richard Sherman has spoken out about things. The list goes on and on. All admirable, all righteous. But what Charles Barkley was talking about is where are the results? And I got news for you, ladies and gentlemen. Especially in this day and age, that's a pretty damn legitimate question. And you know why it's important? Because anybody can complain all day long till the cows come home, thereby providing a crutch for youngsters on the come up to lean on to justify not going for it, not putting in your due diligence, to justify the defeatist attitude that sifts through their veins like a virus. Except there's a problem. As bad as times are from time to time in this day and age, there was actually a time where it was much, much worse, where it was incredibly overt. And ancestors, not just of African American descent, but other minority groups in this country as well, found a way to persevere, to continue to move forward, and ultimately overcome and conquer the kind of hard times we can't even imagine. And if they did it, what's our excuse not to? We're not saying that enough. And that's where the real problem lies. And you know why we're not saying it as much? Because we're not accomplishing the results we seek. We're just talking. That's what Barkley was saying. And I agree with him. Albeit I wish he could be a bit more sensitive when he says it sometimes. So people understood his sensitivities, but he ain't wrong. Let's not act like he is. 866-729-ESPN. That's 866-729-3776. Your phone call's up next, right here with the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio.
Daddy, where do babies come from?
Honey?
Mommy went to the store.
Oh, well, you see, there's a mommy and a daddy, right?
Right.
And see, when they call Geico, they could save a bunch of money on car insurance.
Oh, really? And that makes them happy?
Yes, that makes them very happy.
That's good.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we could have this talk, sunshine.
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
Guess what? You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it! Stan, when I said just what I said about Barkley, there's an abundance of individuals within the African-American community who feel differently. Take, for example, this guy, Caron. I don't know how to pronounce his name. It's Caron, C-A-R-R-O-N. Caron J. Phillips. Writer for the New York Daily News. Listen to this column. I'll read just the first couple of graphs. I think Charles Barkley is the greatest power forward to ever play basketball. I think Charles Barkley is must-see TV every Thursday night on TNT's Inside the NBA. I also think Charles Barkley is setting black America back every time he opens his mouth to say something completely uninformed, idiotic, and stupid about race relations in this country. Chuck, stop talking. That's what he said. He also went on Tuesday mornings on ESPN's Mike and Mike. Barkley commented on athletes involved in activism and then decided to give his advice on what black America needs to do to make things better. Quote, I think you should go to the White House. It isn't about the person. It's about the office. That's just my opinion. Now, Charles Barkley and I do not agree on that. I do not believe anybody should go to the White House right now with the way this particular president has conducted himself. We ain't talking Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative, anything. I'm talking about one man who's 71 years old and has been acting like a child, a malignant narcissist. I heard one of the pundits say that the other day. I completely agree with that terminology. A malignant narcissist. I do not agree with Charles Barkley on that. I don't think anybody should go to the White House thinking, oh, it's about the office. No, it ain't. Most of the time it was. Not this time. Not right now. And let me say this for the record, ladies and gentlemen. The few times in my life I've had a conversation with Donald Trump, which, by the way, the last one was right before he announced he was running for the presidency. He has always been incredibly nice to me. Always. I want to emphasize that. When I met Donald Trump, last time I met him was at the Wynn Hotel in Vegas with Mr. Steve Wynn, the owner for the Wynn Hotel. Couldn't have been nicer. Absolutely, positively a gentleman in every way imaginable. God's honest truth. On the phone with him in the past, talking about sports, because I've interviewed him in the past. Absolute gentleman. Absolutely, positively so. That's why I don't get caught up in all the race and the racism and the things that people try to say about him, because I've never seen it from him, ever, until he had to win an election and felt the need to cater to that element. In the end, what it comes down to is you're in office. You're not running for office anymore. And the presidency demands a certain level of decorum. And that's the reason I don't agree with Mr. Robert Kraft, who I not only respect and know and have conversed with from time to time, but who I revere. I'm sorry for those that will get turned off about it. I want to state for the record, I revere Mr. Kraft. I love the man. I love his leadership. I love how he is. And I respect the hell out of him. And he's a kind man. I talk to him. I know this. But I respectfully disagree with him giving the president of the United States a championship ring. Because I don't think this president deserves it. Now, he has been a friend of Mr. Kraft on a very personal level, who has been there for Mr. Kraft, and that can't be ignored. But the reason why I say that is because the president of the United States represents us all. And I believe that the job of a president is to be a diplomat and a statesman first. Because you're responsible for the imagery of a nation. And how you conduct yourself and how you carry yourself and how you articulate yourself matters. And what I've seen from this president is not indicative of the kind of things Mr. Kraft would celebrate. Because I revere this man and I know him personally. And I'm telling you, he's a good man. And he don't subscribe to the nonsense we've seen. And if his friend, who happens to be the president, ever came to the Patriots conducting himself that way, Mr. Kraft would never tolerate it. Y'all keep getting caught up in Bill Belichick and Bill Belichick this and Bill Belichick that and Bill Belichick don't play and Bill Belichick's not going to accomplish this, that, or the third. Oh, no, it's Mr. Kraft. He's the one that cuts Bill Belichick's check. Belichick cashes it. He's the one that meets with players individually and establishes a standard that will not be compromised. He is the one that does that, not Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick enforces his standards. It ain't the other way around. I'm telling you what I know. I know Mr. Kraft. I know members of the Patriots, past and present. I know what they say about this man. I know how they feel about this man. And what he stands for is not consistent with the behavior of the POTUS. That's why I disagree with Charles Barkley on that point. I don't think anybody should be going to the White House to see the president right now or to celebrate anything with the president right now. Not until he learns how to act. But outside of that, what Karan J. Phillips said, I only respectfully disagree because what did Barkley really say? Saying we got to stand up and be about the business of the mission and what we're trying to accomplish, not just going off about stuff. And I think it's up to educated and accomplished individuals like Mr. Phillips and others to take it to a deeper level as opposed to just lamenting the fact that somebody who may not be as informed as they are simply opened their mouth because they were asked a question. But that's just me.
You're listening to the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
To the phones we go. Back here on the Stephen A. Smith Show. ESPN Radio, 866-729-ESPN. Let's go to Jake in Cali. You're live with Stephen A. What's up, Jake? Good afternoon. Good morning. What's up?
Hey, what's going on, Stephen A.? How you doing today, man?
I'm all right, man. Thank you for calling. Talk to me.
All right. I don't, and Stephen A., I respect your opinion, man, so I don't want to start it off. I wanted to call about Odell Beckham, but I just wanted to say with all due respect when I say it, I don't want to say I don't like when you apologize, but I feel like there's nothing you go say that's not going to offend somebody. And the way that you might refer to, like, Joe Madison and other people that you respect, you know, I'm one of the people that respects your opinion highly, and I think sometimes I don't want to say that you come off a little too nice because some people would disagree with that. They would say that maybe you're a little too rough, but at the same time, I think that a lot of the stuff you say doesn't warrant an apology because if you're very articulate, and I don't brown nose, but you're very articulate with how you say whatever it is you're saying. And there's times when I want to be the first to say when you said something about Kaepernick not voting, I was highly upset with you. And then later on you explained that it wasn't the fact that it was the way he said it. So I think sometimes we get in an uproar and we want to jump down people's throat about what they're saying and not sticking to what the point is. But, you know, when you explain yourself, you said it straight, and it hasn't been too much that I can't say I don't agree with you on.
Well, let me say this, Jay. I get where you're coming from, and I appreciate that. I really do. But what I want to say is this. It's not a matter of apologizing. It's just a matter of making sure that people understand. Look, I might disagree, but I want you to know if I see your point of view, if I respect your perspective. You see what I'm saying? And so it's like there's a difference between that and saying, man, you're an idiot. I have no respect for what you said. You see what I'm saying? And you don't want to do that if that's not how you feel. In other words, I can disagree with you, but feel like, damn, that's a valid point he's making. I disagree, but I see where he's coming from. So let me know. Let me make sure they know I respect where they're coming from. I'm just not vibing with that particular opinion. And that's what I'm trying to do a lot of times. And I think it's important to do that when necessary.
Well, it's sad that because we're African American, if someone African American says something, we get labels if we don't totally agree. Sort of like with the Kaepernick thing. I've called you about it before. And it's like we get certain labels put on us.
Labels from our own, by the way. Labels from our own.
And that's what's so hard because you get the distractions from people who are like, hey, I don't like the way you're doing this and I don't agree with how you're doing it. It's a lot of people that's not going to get $1 million contract for standing for something. But that's neither here nor there. I wanted to say that to you before I wanted to talk about Odell Beckham.
Go ahead. Go to Odell. Go ahead.
Do you think that there's going to become a time where he understands, because he's bringing a lot of attention to himself. When you see him on TV, he's dancing. He's supposed to be running the drills, and he's out there dancing. He's hitting the goal post for that the kickers use. He's doing all these different things, and then when it's time for him to perform, he's either injured or he's dropping balls now. Do you think that, and once again, I'm asking because I respect your opinion, do you think that there'll come a point where he grows up, where he plays ball, he's a talented young man?
I think it will happen. You know when it's going to happen?
When
somebody caves his chest in.
Do you think that's what happened last night?
No, that ain't happened last night. But I do think it's going to get a point in time where somebody going to cave his chest in, maybe concuss him or something like that, and let him know this is a man's game. And, yo, man, we out here trying to feed our families. We ain't playing. All these games, we ain't playing. That's what it's going to happen.
Hey, Stephen A., I appreciate you, man. Keep doing what you're doing.
I appreciate it, Jay.
Some of us, we go to you. You go to Joe Madison. We come to you. And I got to check Joe Madison's show out because,
he's one of them. He's one of the many. But, listen, I respect him, and I encourage all of us in our community. Listen, I'm not a conservative. I'm not a liberal. I'm an independent. But I know intelligence when I hear it and when I see it, and especially when your heart's in the right place. And I think that he's one of those people out there that people should be listening to, and that's why I give him the love that I give him. I got to run, Jay. I appreciate the call. Thank you so much. Joe in Long Island, you're live with Stephen A. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, what's going on? So I just wanted to say something that
All right, Joe, do me a favor. Step away from your phone just a touch so you don't sound so muffled. Go ahead.
All right, my fault. So I just wanted to let you know that I guess politics is in the beholder, the eye of the beholder, and there's tens of millions of people, Americans, who feel the same way that you feel about you and like Max Kellerman. Let's say you guys feel about President Trump. There's tens of millions of people who felt the same way about Obama, the way he spoke about issues, and they felt that he divided the country. Same way that you guys, accuse President Trump of doing. So I just wanted you to keep that in mind.
Hold that thought. I don't think Max and I totally agree. Because with Max, it's a combination of political and personal. In terms of, to me, I don't even get into the politics. My issue, and I don't think you can compare former President Obama with Trump. In terms of, you might have divided the country with your politics. You have that right. If you're a liberal, you believe certain things. If you're a conservative, you believe certain things. Whoever's holding the office has a right to do what they feel is correct, consistent with the politics of our nation in some capacity or another. What you do not have the right to do is act like a child, a belligerent one at that. And don't ever tell me that y'all could accuse President Obama of that. That is false. That much is false.
That's one person's opinion. That's your opinion. Some people like the way that President Trump speaks.
Hold on. Let me ask you a question. Can you legitimately say that? I'm not talking about politics now. I'm not talking about politics at all. I'm talking about in terms of being a diplomat and a statesman as it pertains to how you conduct yourself just as a human being. Can you really say that the two compare?
Well, no, they're different people. I mean, one's a politician.
Come on, Joe. Joe, come on, man. We real here on the show. Don't do that, Joe. Answer the question, man. Don't dance around that. I asked you a direct question.
A lot of people can say that Obama's responsible for dividing the nation, the way that he spoke about all those, Trayvon Martin cases and, the Eric Browns and whatnot.
No. That's an opinion about what transpired. I'm talking about behavioral issues. You disagree with his position. You might disagree with his politics. Don't talk to me about behavior.
Kind of petulant to blame police for, call police racist.
Okay. All right, Joe. Have a nice day. Joe's not being real. I'm going to give him an opportunity to call back when I have more time. But that's nonsense. You can't say that. You disagreeing with one's position or politics is entirely different than talking about their behavior. The two don't even compare. Hour number 2 up next.
That's just a sample of what you'll hear on the Stephen A. Smith Show. Weekdays at 1 p.m. Eastern on Sirius XM Channel 80 and the ESPN app.
Check out ESPN Films' newly released 30 for 30 podcasts. From the producers of our award-winning documentary series, this is an amazing collection of sports stories you need to hear to believe. Speaking of amazing, Delta Airlines and the Fly Delta app make your travel experience amazingly easy with real-time bag tracking, e-boarding, and passport scanning during check-in. And don't forget to download 30 for 30 podcasts to fill your flight with stories that will keep you coming back for more.
This is the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
I'm Stephen A. 2 of the Stephen A. Smith Show here with you for the next hour over the airwaves of ESPN Radio, Sirius XM Channel 80. Number to call up, as always, is 866-729-ESPN. That's 866-729-3776. Lots of stuff to get into as this show progresses today. Somehow, some way, we got people out there trying to make a big deal about the Cowboys and some backup. What is it, Cody Ross, whatever the hell his name is. He's going to beat out Kellen Moore. Stop the presses. Stop the presses. The Dallas Cowboys are going to have a backup quarterback. Stop the damn presses. By the way, something interesting, too. Somebody said something. I forgot who it was, but they talked about how the team in L.A., the number one team in L.A., is the Oakland Raiders. I actually believe that. I actually think that's true. As I sit here in the City of Angels this week, I got to confess, that's actually true. You might think about the Chargers or the Rams, not to that degree. But by the way, I don't know if you noticed, if you heard what happened with the Rams, former St. Louis Rams coach, because they're not the Los Angeles Rams, Mike Martz, was asked if he believed new head coach Sean McVay can make a difference for Jared Goff. Listen to what Mike Martz said. Listen to his answer. Take it away, Nuno.
I understand the tone of it, and I kind of feel that way, but I wouldn't express it like that. That's somebody putting words in my mouth. I just don't appreciate that at all. But I do feel like I don't understand why, but I don't know Coach McVay. I don't know how good he is or his knowledge, what would prepare him for that situation. I really don't know. Obviously, the Rams do.
I guess it's Mart's backtracking to some degree. I don't know. But essentially he was talking about and alluding to McVay needing to be buddy-buddy with Jared Goff, I guess, because he's so young. He basically backtracked to some degree. And we'll just leave it at that. But it said here, reading from an ESPN.com news service, former NFL coach Mike Martz denied making the harshest of comments attributed to him in an upcoming book about whether rookie coach Sean McVay is capable of having an impact on second-year Rams quarterback Jared Goff. In the book Blitzed, Why NFL Teams Gamble on Starting Rookie Quarterbacks, due out in September, Martz was asked whether McVay can make a difference with Goff. Goff appeared in 7 games last season under veteran coach Jeff Fisher. An excerpt was obtained by ESPN. Quote, what is he, a couple of months older than Jared? They hired a buddy for Jared, Martz was quoted as saying in the book. The NFL has nothing to do with being the friend or the buddy of the quarterback. You've got to coach them and work them hard with respect. But buddy? and this guy is a quarterback expert, an offensive expert, wait a minute while I puke. Now, obviously, Martz is quoted as saying, he said it's not accurate. He said he would never say something like that. Like he's quoted in the book, but he's quoted in the damn book. So there's what you have. In the end, here's what it comes down to. We need to see something from Jared Goff. Or the Los Angeles Rams ain't going to be too much. And maybe that's one of the reasons why, even though they're after Aaron Donald and hell-bent on trying to sign him, maybe that's why at times it doesn't appear to be a priority, because guess why? If the team's going to stink anyway, why spend the money? It's probably how they're thinking. It wouldn't be the first time a businessman thought that way. 866-729-ESPN. That's 866-729-3776. I'm also going to talk about Mayweather and Conor McGregor, because I got to tell you something. I hope the fight's interesting. I think that Floyd's going to destroy him, pick him apart. I don't see how he's going to hit Floyd. But I do believe he has a puncher's chance. I think any puncher has a puncher's chance. And I want to repeat and reiterate what I said before. If this man beats Floyd Money Mayweather, it will be the biggest upset in the history of boxing. You cannot be an undisputed or undefeated champion and universally recognized as one of the best ever, and then get beat by somebody who's never boxed before in their life in the ring. Can't do it. Can't do it. So Floyd can act like he doesn't care all he wants and that, he's dismissive of it, but that cannot be allowed. That cannot happen. It would be devastating for the sport of boxing if Floyd Money Mayweather were to lose this fight to Conor McGregor. And Rocky Marciano Jr., the son of the late, great Rocky Marciano, said Floyd Money Mayweather's 49-0 record, it should be just that. It shouldn't be considered 50-0 if he beat Conor McGregor. Now, Max Kellerman, being the boxing aficionado, the boxing historian that he is, talked about Marciano and others who fought subpar fighters who weren't even on their level. And if you're sanctioned by the governing body in boxing, whether it's the Nevada State Athletic Commission or anybody else, it should count. I'm with Rocky Marciano Jr. on this. I don't think it should count towards 50-0. Conor McGregor has never fought as a boxer in his life. And I think if you're Floyd and you get into the ring and you destroy Conor McGregor, it should not count as 50-0. It just shouldn't. It absolutely positively should not. Just like it shouldn't count towards Conor McGregor's record as a UFC fighter. I don't think it should be. I don't think it should count. I don't think when Randy Couture took out James Toney in a minute, I don't think that should have counted. It's an exhibition. That's how I view it. 866-729-ESPN. That's 866-729-3776. Back to the phones we go. Danny in Texas, you're live with Stephen A. What's up?
Hey, Stephen A. Love your show. Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I just want to say I totally agree with you about Colin Kaepernick. The fact that he doesn't have a job is just an absolute disgrace on the NFL. It's just ridiculous. Secondly, I totally agree with Charles Barkley about the fact that the kneeling for the national anthem is no longer, if you ask people why that person is kneeling, most of them can't even tell you why he's kneeling. All they will talk about is the fact that he is disrespecting the flag. So that the kneeling itself is no longer working. And trust me, I'm a disabled veteran. I left a lot of brothers and sisters over there of every color. And I am completely against racial injustice in this country. I just don't think kneeling for the flag is getting it. And I personally don't agree with it because the people that give you that right to protest, and believe me, I am all for the protesting. If you want to protest, I'm all for it. Let's just find another way. What about standing on the sidelines and having everybody?
Stop
black,
right there.
white,
Stop right
green.
there. Stop right there. You're a disabled veteran. First of all, let me thank you and express my sincere appreciation to you on behalf of my show and everybody here at ESPN for your service to our country. Let's
my pleasure.
Make sure we say that. I appreciate that. But having said that, it is important to point this out. and to ask you this question. Sir, with all due respect, even though you don't like it, why do you have to suggest that he should do it a certain way when you literally fought for the right for him to be able to do exactly what he did if he so choose?
What I'd say about that is, and believe me, I'm all for the protest. I
heard
totally get it. It's just the kneeling now is no longer about I am, against racial injustice in this country. And it's because of what Charles Barkley said.
Sir, I didn't interpret it that way. I'm not accusing you of that. I'm saying I need you, because I have a radio show and I have other callers. I need you to answer the direct question that I posed to you, which was, since you literally fought for him to have the right to do what he did, why is it that you would suggest that he does something else when his protest was peaceful and he didn't inhibit anybody's ability to watch the game or anything like that, and he exercised the very constitutional rights you yourself fought and sacrificed to protect?
Exactly, and I think what I was trying to say is...
Why make the suggestion for something different is what I'm saying, as opposed to just respecting his right to do what he did?
I guess what I was saying is, I would like to try and find a way. I mean, I'm not against the fact that he did it his way. Don't get me wrong. If he wants to kneel, then by all means, you're right. I fought for that right. But what I'm saying is, since that is not working the way it was intended to work, and has become a media circus about who, like Charles Barkley said, who's the bad guy, who's the good guy, based on what they're doing on the sideline during the national anthem, isn't working, that maybe, I mean, I may not be smart enough, but I'd like to find a way to unify everybody, and I think that's the problem. Some people won't kneel because they want to stand for the flag. Some people will. But how about maybe something else that everybody can wrap their arms around? And I'm not that smart. All I want to say is I really love your show. I'm a white male, and I absolutely love what you're doing, Stephen A. And I would just like to find the right way, because believe me, like I said, I left a lot of brothers and sisters there, and they were of every color. The racism in this country disgusts me.
Danny, thank you so much for your call. And again, thank you for your service to our nation. We really appreciate it on behalf of the show and on behalf of the network. Thank you so much, buddy. 866-729-ESPN. That's 866-729-3776. We'll get back to your phone calls, but that's after we have Coach Herm Edwards on the phone with yours truly. You're listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio.
You're listening to the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Back to Stephen A. Smith Show right here on ESPN Radio. Always an honor and privilege to have my buddy. I got to say this to y'all. He's the former head coach for the New York Jets, former head coach for the Kansas City Chiefs, NFL analyst extraordinaire for ESPN. And I must admit, ladies and gentlemen, if I look this good in my 60s, I got to tell you something right now. I'll be a very, very proud man, because it ain't going to happen. I can't look as good as my man, Herm Edwards. Coach Herm Edwards is on the line with yours truly right now. What's up, Coach? How you doing, man?
Oh, it's good to hear your voice, my friend. I know you're out there in California, my country, and you're going to be fabulous this week, because this is right up your alley.
You know it. Coach, let's get right to it. There's a lot of issues that are going on. First of all, let's touch on Odell Beckham Jr. real quick.
Right.
The hit wasn't illegal. We all know that. We all know that was within the confines of the rules and regulations. But that kind of hit taking place, particularly in the preseason, what kind of sour taste should that leave in the mouths of Odell Beckham Jr. or any NFL player for that matter, seeing the hit that he suffered from last night, which seemed to be very, very unnecessary?
Well, I think all the players realize when you step between the lines, you're one play away from being injured. And you know this is the profession we choose. And I say this as a former player. The intentions is never to injure an opponent, and that was not in the intentions of the DB. He was actually slipping down when he was trying to make the tackle. And then the next thing that occurred, it was a high ball. And so he had to leave his feet to catch the ball. If it was thrown a little bit lower and outside, he probably catches it with his feet on the ground and gets out of bounds, but that didn't take place. So there's a lot of things that happen in the course of a football game. We know that injury is part of our game. Now, you would say we don't want to see our star players being hurt. To be quite frank, I don't want to see any player getting hurt. They're all important.
Coach Herm Edwards right here with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. Coach, the flip side to all of that is that sometimes I look at the NFL and I say to them they should be ashamed of themselves because obviously they encourage you to hit low. We know what the priority is, avoiding the concussion issue, which has stained this league probably forever because of so many things that transpired in years past. But I personally speaking, Coach, I'm like this. You're going to have a whole bunch of NFL players walking around crippled for crying out loud when all is said and done if the NFL keeps it up. Just like you can force individuals to try and avoid shots to the head, to me, how come you can't encourage and enforce hitting individuals above the knees? Anything from the below the chin to the knees. How come that's so difficult to enforce, Coach?
Well, it's hard to enforce this reason, Stephen A., is that the strike point where you basically how you teach tackling, it's above the knees to the bottom of your breastplate. That's your aiming spot. That's where you would like to go. But the problem is, in a game like football, bodies are moving at tremendous speeds. And all of a sudden, if you change the angle all of a sudden when a guy's about to hit you, and he has to make this decision within about 1.5 seconds. And if you change anywhere your body position, the blow is different. Mm-hmm. So it's not like the defender is purposely going for the legs. But remember, on defense, your number one job, once the guy has the ball, is jar the ball away from the guy that has it and tackle him. That's your job.
Herm Edwards right here with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. Let's transition to a couple of other issues, Coach. We've got the Denver Broncos naming Trevor Siemian their quarterback. Any problem with that in your mind whatsoever?
No, and I don't think it was competition, to be quite honest. I mean, Trevor Siemian is more suited right now to lead this football team. He's more accurate. He has a really nice grasp of the offense. Here's my problem that when I look at Lynch as well as Osweiler, they're always going to have problems in this sense of being accurate, and they have elongated throws. Why? They're both 6'7". That's a problem. There's really, in our history of the league, there has not been many quarterbacks that have been successful that are 6'7" or taller. That's just a fact. I'm not making it up. You can go back and look at the annals of pro football. Okay. And when you have that elongated release, you can't get the ball out quickly. And the next problem you have is this, is when the pocket shrinks and there's this clutter at your feet, because you have a long stride, you have to throw with your arm. So now the accuracy is a part of it gets affected by that. And when you watch these guys play, they have the same problem.
Herm Edwards right here with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. I hear exactly where you're coming from, but I got to tell you, Coach, I look at this, and some of it is not that complicated to me. I'm looking at Jay Cutler in Miami. I'm looking at the atrocious quarterback situation with the New York Jets right now. I'm looking at the problems that I anticipate the Los Angeles Rams will have, along with various teams in between at that quarterback spot. You're hearing now people talking about how Cam Newton was voted, the most inaccurate or what have you. You see the kind of things that are being said about him. The game has changed how, in your mind, as it pertains rather to the modern day quarterback. And what do you think it takes to be a successful quarterback in this day and age?
Well, a couple things come to mind. Is your ability to process the information. Then from there, you have to make accurate throws. And from there, you have to have a quick release. And then you have to have great leadership qualities. Those are the things that really, when you look at it, that's what transfers. I mean, that's the appeal of playing the quarterback position. And the ones that are successful obviously have those traits. Also this, when you play in a system that is suited for your skill set, that also helps you. Sometimes players are put into systems and it doesn't really bring out their strengths. It almost defines their weaknesses, and that can be a problem.
Coach Herm Edwards, let's transition to a subject that I've been waiting to talk to you about because and I'm going to ask you this question in a different way. You've seen all the stuff about Colin Kaepernick and his protests. You've talked about the residue of that, him not being able to get a job in the NFL right now. We've seen players kneel for the national anthem. We've seen them raise fists like Malcolm Jenkins has raised. We've seen white individuals get involved like the Chris Longs of the world and the Derek Carrs with Khalil Macks of the world, and now last night in Cleveland as well. First things first, Coach, as a guy, experienced, age-old veteran, player, coach, now a commentator, obviously of African-American descent, are you tired of this issue right now, particularly as it pertains to the NFL?
Well, it's a social issue, and I think if you're a football fan, you kind of scratch your head because you'd like for sports to not be involved in social issues because it's almost our way of getting away from things, right? No matter what our problems are in life, whether we have our own personal problems, social issues, whatever it may be, once you walk into a stadium or you turn the television on to watch a sporting event, that's your 3 hours or whatever it takes to be played of just, I'm getting away from everything. I'm in a different world right now. But athletes have the power to bring things to light. And I think sometimes we put them in a position where we just want them to be athletes. Well, they're not just athletes. That's their occupation. Their fathers, their husbands, their citizens in the community. And I think what the NFL has done at this point, they've looked at this situation that's happening in our country where there's some social unrest, and they're saying this, we need to look at this as Americans. Is this how we want to look as a country? And I think with that being said, if you're a fan of a sport, I think the conversation is not only about the athletes, but the conversation what the athletes are standing for and protesting needs to be talked at home, at the dinner table, with your children. And the conversation is, why are they not standing for the national anthem, Dad or Mom? And you explain it to them. Why?
But Coach, what about the issue that Charles Barkley brought up, talking to Mike and Mike this morning? Basically, he was talking about how you got a bunch of folks protesting and what have you. He said, what have they accomplished? Do you find yourself asking that question at this moment in time?
Well, yeah, because the sad part about it is we saw this, and I'll go back further than you, Stephen, and we saw this in the 60s when I was growing up. Now, have we come a long way? Yeah. But right now in 2017, why do we still have these issues? I mean, at the magnitude that we look at now, and maybe because because the invention of the phone and the media has brought it to light more, but you would think, aren't we past some of these things that we dealt with in the 60s? Well, guess what? I guess we're not.
Well, you know what I'm wondering about, Coach? All of these protests, all of this noise that has been made, and obviously it's valid in terms of prejudice and bigotry and racial inequality. All of that stuff's fine. Here's my deal. One of the impetus for such things also had something to do with bringing attention to the plight of Colin Kaepernick, who still doesn't have a job. And last time I checked, it don't look like he's going to get a job anytime soon. Your thoughts about that?
I'm hoping that's not the case, and I'm hoping that what Cleveland did as a team, if that continues to grow in the league, I think ownership will be more reluctant, won't be as reluctant to say, well, guess what? It's okay. He's not going to distract this football team. You know, that's the problem with owners right now. I think they look at that situation of Colin and wonder, we bring this guy in to be the backup quarterback. Well, is that going to be the conversation in our locker room? Is that going to distract our football team? And in my opinion, I don't think it will, but I think that was the thing that the owners looked at. But now that this has become what you saw Cleveland did last night, well, if this thing continues to grow, all of a sudden now, if you're an owner, you're saying, guess what? Okay, we're seeing the message these players are sending.
Last question to you, Coach. What team in the NFL needs a quarterback more than anybody?
Oh, boy. For me, well, look, it's obvious. The obvious one, obviously, is the Jets. We know that. But, Stephen A., there's a bunch of teams right now that are playing with cautiously. I mean, you look at Chicago, they might play a rookie at the end. You look at, obviously, Houston, they might play a rookie. There's some guys here now, I mean, that are looking like, okay, if this thing turns the other way, Cleveland might end up playing a rookie. But here's the one that I'm concerned with. It's Carolina. It's the Colts. It's the Ravens. They got veteran quarterbacks that haven't played. And we don't know when they come back, can they make it through the season? That could be a problem.
Coach, always appreciate the time, buddy. Thanks so much for joining me, man. You take care of yourself soon.
Thank you, my friend. You have fun out there.
All right, buddy. The one and only Coach Herm Edwards right here with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio, 866-729-ESPN. There's always a number to call up. That's 866-729-3776. You heard what he's had to say about Trevor Siemian in Denver, about Odell Beckham Jr., and how he luckily avoided season-ending injury last night. You also heard him talking about protests in the National Football League and Colin Kaepernick in particular. All that and more to discuss up next. It is still the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio.
Okay, keep your eyes closed.
Okay.
I want to show you my first ever painting.
All right.
Okay. Open your eyes.
Oh, that's a lot of colors and shades.
So be honest. What do you think?
Well, I like how if you switch to Geico, you could save hundreds of dollars on car insurance.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Here, why don't I hold your paintbrush while you call them?
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
On the phones before we get on out of here, Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio. Tanner in Oregon. You're live with Stephen A. Tanner, good afternoon. Thank you for calling.
Hey, how are you today, sir? Thank you for taking my call.
Go ahead, buddy.
Couple things. First off, I don't think that we should do away with the NFL preseason, but to make it safer, those guys don't need to be out there in pads actually fully tackling each other. You're out there to test your routes and get some plays going and see if it's going to work. We got lots of problems with no solutions. I think that's an easy.
You know what? Can I say this real quick, Tanner, before you make your second point?
Absolutely.
During the All-Pro game, don't you see guys basically playing flag football?
Yeah, but in the All-Pro game, you're not out there trying to test your team's
No, listen to what I'm saying. Listen to what I'm saying. Why can't you do the same thing in preseason? Think about what you just said. Running routes, running plays, learning things as they go along without the hardcore physical contact. During meaningless games, maybe you could come up with something like that.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
I mean, like I said, we got problems without solutions. That's a firm solution. Because honestly, I don't think that many people watch enough preseason football that you should have to worry about somebody getting injured out there.
Okay, you're running out of. I got you. You're running out of time. Go ahead and make your other point, buddy.
Secondly, the kneeling thing, the message is not getting through. I don't think that's the proper method. Not a method available, but we need a different method. And I truly think it starts with the elder people of our society. Because let's face it, it's not an African-American problem or a Caucasian problem or any of that. It's an elders in what we teach our children and our families and our communities. That's where it's got to start. And if these NFL guys or whoever, even you guys or myself being in the military, we can't continue to create barriers. And that's what we've done with the kneeling, is created another barrier.
I got you. I appreciate your call, man, and thank you for your service to our country. You said you were in the military. Thank you so much. Let's go to Tom in San Francisco. You're live with Stephen A. Real quick, Tom. Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, Stephen A. I think a lot of people, they don't know. I'm homegrown San Francisco, 49er, Giants, Warriors fan, and season ticket holder. This deal with Colin Kaepernick, you know what? This goes deeper, so much deeper. The 49er organization, we'll go back to the 80s when they had the greatest owner in National Football League history, Eddie DiBartolo. And he ran the classiest organization in football. And nobody in those days would have thought of doing this. And the reason why, they had a great bunch of guys. They would have all stuck together and possibly did it a different way. That embarrassed the city of San Francisco, the 49ers, the season ticket holders.
How did he embarrass you?
Embarrass the organization and fans by doing that. This is not the way to do a protest.
Whoa. How did he embarrass you? I understand you disagree with him protesting the national anthem, but how did he embarrass you? How are you as a fan personalizing it? What did he do to you that embarrassed you? I can understand him ticking you off. I can understand you not liking it. But how were you affected to the point where you were embarrassed personally? Oh, he quit. He dropped off. Oh, I'm so surprised. Chris in Oklahoma, you're live with Stephen A. Real quick. Go ahead, Chris.
Hey, Steve. I love the show. By the way, I called in to Bomani's show and made this almost exact same point. But then after listening to you, I kind of went back on it, and then I got to thinking, well, I mean, the guy's name is Floyd Money Mayweather for a reason. It's not Floyd 50-0 Mayweather. Something's gonna happen. Connor's gonna win. They're gonna set us up again for round 2, and they're both gonna get $300, $200, even $100 million each, somewhere around there. What do you think?
I would say this to you. You could be right if Floyd didn't care, but you're basically saying he'd be willing to throw the fight just to make sure he'd get paid in a rematch. I'm not going to go there. I believe that Floyd cares about being unblemished. I believe making in excess of $800 million and working this hard, this long, all his life. I don't believe Floyd Mayweather is the kind of individual that is sitting up there and saying a rematch would get us even more money, so let me go in here and get knocked out by Conor McGregor. I don't see that. I'm not even saying he's going to get knocked out. I'm saying he knows that I know, Stephen A. Smith knows, the world knows that he's the best boxer in the world. He's been doing it almost half his life, over half his life. He knows that we all know that, and now he's just going, hey, I'm going to cash this in. I think he cares about winning too much. I find it hard to believe that he'll let a guy that's never boxed blemish his record like this. I just find it hard to believe, but anything's possible. Jonathan in Florida, you're live with Stephen A. Real quick, Jonathan, go.
Hey, how you doing, Stephen? It's more so to the comment of the last two gentlemen, the guy from San Francisco and the veteran. I just don't understand why, even if you don't agree with Kaepernick or the rest of the guys' protest, why do we have to preference our protest to make you feel comfortable? That's the whole point of the protest, so we can bring attention to the situation and have these conversations. Furthermore, who's to say that Kaepernick didn't think this thing through and had a long-term plan? Maybe this is the end game. We're still talking about it. He's still relevant. The issue is still relevant. We just have to get back to the center point, and people like you have to guide that conversation for us, because I'm not in a position to do that, but you have a microphone and you're on TV every day. You can do that, and people like you can do that.
Well, I will tell you that I don't think that he had a plan of being out of football, because he opted out and was looking for another job. Miami and Baltimore came to mind, but for different reasons, that didn't pan out. So I'm not one who's inclined to believe that he had a long-range plan. Certainly, with his girlfriend sending out tweets comparing the owner for the Ravens and Ray Lewis, the former great linebacker for them, to the Leonardo DiCaprio, Samuel L. Jackson characters in the movie Django, didn't help matters. Wearing a Fidel Castro T-shirt didn't help matters. And you hurt yourself with those issues when you're looking for a job, and clearly he was looking for a job. And then we can act like he's not, but I don't believe that. I believe he wants to be in the NFL. I believe he expected to be in the NFL. And I don't know if he expected this, which wasn't the wisest thing in the world to do, to be blind to, rather, meaning not expecting a backlash from owners and things of that nature. But it is what it is, and that's where we are. NFL season's rapidly approaching. College football's rapidly approaching. Still NBA stuff to get into and more. I'll be back with y'all in 22 hours. Until then, peace and love, everybody.